talking about that?
Well, for years, it was a traditional full-service car wash. We vacuumed at the entrance, and every customer got out, walked into the hallway and paid the cashier, and then we washed the windows and dusted and so forth at the exit end. And, I think you're referring going to FlexServe, because there were some minor changes prior to that, but the FlexServe was a huge change, and it was primarily driven because of my interest and the demand from the customer to have a really good interior. And the way a traditional full-service car wash is laid out, it's very difficult to get the car clean the way they want it. And why I say that is when we first were in the business years ago, there were no cup holders in cars, and I'm going to date myself, and you weren't allowed to eat in mom and dad's car. So doing an interior cleaning was pretty easy because cars were not very dirty. But today, minivans, everybody eats, there's their office, and it's very difficult. And their desire for cleanliness has not changed, but what we have to do to get at that point, it's very difficult. So moving all the interior cleaning after the wash, a lot of people call it aftercare, allowed us to now turn out the quality of interior cleaning that I wanted and the customer wanted. Plus, it was management-wise, instead of having two labor locations, entrance and exit, we have one labor location. So as from a management standpoint, you're managing crews in one location, which is, my manager's been with me over 20 years. She would never want to go back to the old way. I knew I had to do something, and other folks, again, I follow what works. Other folks had already made that transition and were happy, and obviously we raised the price because you get what you pay for, and our percent of full service has gone down, and we anticipated that. It's not gone down as far as some of my friends who made that change suggested it would go to. So we're higher than the average in terms of a percent of full service. But I'm very happy with the quality, and ultimately all of our decisions should be customer driven. It doesn't matter what we want. If the customer doesn't want it, it doesn't make any difference. The majority appreciated that fact because, again, the majority are exterior customers. They don't like the inconvenience of getting out. Some of the older population, I had the comment, if I have to stay in my car, I'm not coming back. So I said, you don't have to. There needs to be no change for you. And then there are some even younger folks that are, as they say, claustrophobic. So if you want to get out, you can get out. If you want to ride, whatever you want, we'll do for you.
So then, about a year ago, you made another big change.
Yes, we made the decision to go from the PPTs, which is prepaid, to the express pay terminal. And a couple of things drove that decision. As I saw the home improvement stores and the grocery stores add self-pay areas, I realized that that's what some customers want, and my wife absolutely will only go to a grocery store where she can self-pay. And again, we want all the choices available, and there was a couple of defining moments in that regard to make that decision. Of course, I had been looking at that all along. It was a sizable investment for me, being in a small market and not a high volume wash. That was a very difficult decision. As you well know, we worked on that decision over maybe a 2 or 3 year time frame, but there was a couple of defining moments that helped me make that decision. Again, it was customer driven, and I was on the lot one day, and a customer called me over to his car. We also have self-serve vac areas. We'll do it, and we offer free vacuuming. And he says, can I tell you something? And I said, sure. he says, you know, my wife won't come here. And I said, really? And she goes, yes, every time she would come in here, your man back there, he would try to sell her the kitchen sink. And I have to qualify that because you're aware of this company called the Curry Group, who help train service advisors. And Jim, he was referring to Jim, who has been with me 20 plus years, and Curry gave me a huge compliment by saying of all the service advisors we've ever worked with, Jim is absolutely the best service advisor we've ever run across in the car wash industry, that anyways. And so it wasn't that Jim was rude, it wasn't Jim that wasn't informed. Her perception was any effort to educate was interpreted by her that we were trying to force her to buy something she didn't want to purchase. So that I got to thinking, okay, and I said, well, I told her, I said, I'm contemplating this self-serve pay station. Do you think that she would come if that were the case? Absolutely, because she uses the self-pay lines at the grocery store.
Interesting.
Well, then the second defining moment was my daughter, who grew up folding towels at the car wash, and is in sales. She's the Midwest sales manager for the National PGA Resort in Palm Beach. And she was telling me that she goes to 2 car washes, and I'm not going to say the city because you would know who these main operators are. One of them has self-pay stations, and one of them has a service advisor. And she said the one who has a service advisor actually does, the quality is a little better than the one that had the XPT. And it wasn't the XPT quality issue, it was the labor that was involved. And she goes, and the service advisor, Dad, is just like yours. He's really a nice man. He's always friendly, never pushy. But Dad, some days I am just so tired and so burnt out of talking to people, but I need my car wash. I find myself going to the location that has the express pay terminal. I don't know that she used that terminology, as opposed to the service advisor, because I just don't want to talk to anybody, Dad. I said, oh my. Really? She goes, oh yeah. So when she told me that, I picked up the phone and called you. I said, I am ready, because that's a choice, and so we can do it self-pay or we can provide the service. Now, we don't have the PPTs back there anymore, but we man it pretty aggressively because we want to not discourage the customer once the personal touch. Just like Home Depot, there's always a gal or a guy right there ready to assist you, and so we're very aggressive because we don't want to lose a customer because they're forced to do it themselves. But now it's interesting, once we've done this now, and it was back in September, on occasion I will approach a customer, what I think is maybe having a little difficulty, and I'll say, would you like me to help you? No, I know how to do this. It was almost like I'm insulting them.
Oh, they really want
So I've instructed my service advisors / loaders now, be very, very careful that you just offer assistance if you think they need it, but let them, give them an opportunity to do it themselves.
to sit there and chat with Jim. But,
Yes,
so
yes.
how did that go?
Well, initially, Jim was offended by it. He felt like that I was saying that he wasn't doing a good enough job. And it took a few months for me to finally get him to see my motivation. Because I said to Jim, I said, half the people know what they want before they come. They don't want to talk to anybody. The other half want to talk, have questions. So I said, this will allow you to spend the time with the person who really wants the interchange, and the people who don't, then you're free to spend more time with the person who does want the help. So, and the rest of the staff, they're excited about that, because before it took a lot of training and so forth to wait on the customer. Now, because the Express Pay terminal is so simple to operate, any one of our employees can assist the customer if they need it, and they really like that. They really like, I'll go help them. If you program your Express Pay terminal simple initially, and if I were to do a few things over,
Right, I wanted to hear this.
I would have made it much more simpler initially than I did. I tried to basically offer everything on the screen, and it was a bit overwhelming. So we have backed away from a lot of things on the screen and made it much more simple so people are not confused. And we're just gradually, as the regular customer is familiar, then we'll start adding things back in. We did initially, but I think that complicated things too much. And so we took that off the screen as a choice. It's in the screen. If you use your manager's card, you can access that. So the express detailing and so forth really is to the customer who purchases a full-service car wash anywhere anyways. And so we talk to them once they're in that area about those services. But that'll eventually go back in. There's a lot of psychology in regard to what is on this screen, and I appreciate the fact that you folks are really working at figuring out what it should say, how it should say it, the colors and so forth, because that all impacts the presentation. Interesting.
A big concern often is
It
when
is.
you put pay stations in, dollars per car could drop.
It is a concern, and I knew that mine would, and the reason why, and I was willing to accept that, is that Jim, my service advisor, is so good that his personal average per car, nobody beats that average nationwide. Now, everybody else underneath him, they're not even close to him. And I was always concerned that people were purchasing something that they really didn't want to purchase, and I'm pretty sensitive about that. So if we look at the customers that were willing to listen, and Jim was waiting on them, that customer actually is purchasing less. Although the other customer that never would listen to Jim, they would just put the window down about 2 inches and hand out their $5 bill or their $10 bill.
I've seen that. That always makes me giggle.
And so they had no idea what our menu was. You know, they just said, I just want a basic car wash, and we don't even call it a basic car wash, and we just assume that that's the entry-level wash. Those people now, because there's not a person standing there intimidating them, they're looking at a screen and they're used to their laptops at home and so forth, they're actually now looking at the menu and choosing items. And I stand back and watch this, and I know what they've purchased before, and I have personally seen them pick the middle wash as opposed just to the entry-level wash, because now they know what we have. So those customers are spending less. The customer that Jim would wait on that was really open, the first customer who didn't listen, they're spending more. The customer that Jim would wait on, they're spending a little less. And plus, we took the express services off the initial presentation, so that has eroded.
The
So
express services are,
carpet shampoos, hand wax,
Okay.
super interior cleans, and those kinds of items, those are less. But I knew that was going to happen, and I'm not upset about that. We'll build that back in. And Steve, who Bordeaux is,
Goudreau?
yes, he's assisting us in bringing some of that back, and he's doing an on-site analysis here in the next month. So we're excited about, because I've known Steve for many years, and I think his book is excellent. So
It is.
yes, there was erosion. Having said that, though, I believe, and I'll use a name that you probably remember, Stu Filstrom, who owned Bloomington Car Wash in Minneapolis,
Very good
Minnesota.
operator.
He initially was a multiple location operator, and then eventually went to one location in Bloomington, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. And remember years ago, we went to visit him, and he said, if you're not happy with your volume, focus on your volume, and then focus on your average per car later. So I'm not happy with my volume. You know, our statistics based on the program you guys did years ago about how often somebody comes in, and it still to this day shocks me that the majority of the customers come 3, maybe 4 times a year. So working on that, I believe that the XPT will encourage more frequency. If nothing else, this guy's wife is going to start using it. So my focus now is on volume.
Regrets? Anything that you'd have done differently? Anything?
Well, I would have done it earlier,
Okay.
and I had those 2 defining moments, and those are and that's not unique to my market. Anybody's contemplating this, if they didn't have a daughter that told them what my daughter told me, it's reality. I mean, the grocery stores that have both choices do better than the grocery stores that only have cashiers. People are becoming more and more impatient with the human element. My wife she lives a pretty busy life, and she just hates being behind somebody in the cashier line, and the cashier is talking about their daughter's engagement to the customer, and the transaction is long gone. Well, the XPT doesn't ask about your daughter's upcoming wedding. So I would have done it earlier, and I would have done it earlier, earlier just overall, but I did it in September. I should have probably done it maybe in May or June, so that gave me more months before my season started. Those are the 2 things.